And then the time is 7 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pulaski?
Here.
Trustee Della Penna?
Here.
Trustee Domke?
Here.
Trustee Forsythe? Here. Trustee Lanisa? Here. Trustee Prokowski?
Here.
Trustee Trejo?
Here. We have a quorum. We'll move on to presentation of the prepared agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. We'll now move on to Village Board public comment. Anyone wishing to provide a comment on a topic or an agenda item may address the Village Board in person during the public comment and public hearing segments of the Village Board agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the Village Board did adopt the IML Civility Pledge, which states, in the interest of civility, I pledge to promote civility by listening, being respectful of others, acknowledging that we are all striving to support and improve our community, and understand that we each may have different ideas for achieving that objective. That being said, Madam Clerk, did we have anyone submit public comment?
None in advance, but some in person in advance. The first is Youssef Ahmad.
If you just speak clearly into the microphone, so that way everyone in the room or at home watching can hear you.
Sure, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Given the state of the world we are living in today, I'm here to hopefully clear a few misconceptions in hopes of us becoming less divided than we are today. The phrase I started my speech with, Salamu alaikum, is an Islamic greeting which in Hebrew is Shalom alaikum, which means peace be upon you. This phrase is also what Jesus, peace be upon him, said to his disciples, as mentioned in Gospel of Luke, chapter number 24, verse number 36. Some of you might think that Islam is a relatively new religion that was created by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 1400 years ago. Actually, Islam, which means acquiring peace by submitting your will to God, was there since the time man set foot on this earth. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not create Islam, but was the last and final messenger. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that there were 124,000 prophets that were sent on the face of this earth. All of the prophets that were sent, like Prophet Abraham, Moses, Jesus, peace be upon them all, were sent only for their people, and their message as a whole was meant to be followed only for that specific time period. Since Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the last and final messenger, he was sent as a mercy to all of the worlds. It is mentioned in the Holy Quran in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 107, we have not sent you except as a mercy to all of the worlds. It is also mentioned in the Holy Quran in Surah Saba, chapter number 34, verse 28, we did not send you for all mankind except to bring them glad tidings and to warn, but most people do not know. Some of you might think that God of the Muslims is a different God because Muslims say that their God is Allah. Well, if you look in the Arabic Bible, used by over 10 million Arab Jews and Christians, you will find that the word God in English is translated to the word Allah in many places in the Bible. For example, it is mentioned in the Old Testament in the book of Genesis, chapter number 1, verse number 1, in the beginning, Allah created the heaven and the earth. I end with the following verse from the Holy Quran that answers the question, who is our creator and God, Allah? It is mentioned in Surah Ikhlas in the Holy Quran, chapter number 112, verse 1 to 4, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, say he is Allah, the one and unique, Allah, the absolute, the eternal, who is in need of none and of whom all are in need. He neither begat nor was he begotten, and there is none comparable to him. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will say, we welcome all of our neighbors in our community. And one thing that I'm very proud of is our Sister Cities Association gifted the village a peace pole, and we recently updated that. It's located on Prospect Street. And that 7-sided pole represents the 7 continents of the world and has 14 different languages, one of those being Arabic on it to celebrate and to promote peace around the world. And so I think that's something that we can all, especially now, our world needs more peace and understanding across all of our divides. So thank you so much. Other public comment, Madam Clerk.
Next one is Don DeSanti.
Good evening. I'm a new resident, 550 Francesca Lane. It's a fairly new street, so just have a couple concerns, and I'm sure my colleague from the association will address as well. We have not had any clarity as far as snow removal. There's been some confusion that the original builder of the site, which is formerly Kennedy Park, now there's 11 homes on site, which has all been completed now. The pond has been completed, the fence has been completed. We were understanding that the village would possibly handle the snow removal, since recently they've also been out to do surveys of the sewer as well. There's also 2 streetlights that are being installed. It's kind of a slow go right now, but there's 2 holes and it's been kind of at a standstill. And from what we understand, the builder has paid for that and funded that. So we just haven't gotten any feedback via email where that project stands. And again, with the snow removal, we have concerns. There's been emails saying that we are responsible for that street. And if that's the case, is there going to be adjustment with taxes? Everyone on the street has had questions and we're trying to answer them, but we just don't have answers.
Yeah, so I think some of those, what I'll do is I can direct you to our Public Works Department. So Karen Young, back there is our Public Works Director. One thing I can speak to though, when this was being proposed to the board, the developer wanted to have a narrower street, and that narrowest street would mean that we could not bring our equipment to plow the street down it. And so during that time when the developer came to the village for approval, they said that an HOA would be responsible for snow removal on it, while the village would continue to maintain that street going forward. So asphalt resurfacing and things of that nature would be handled by the village, but snow removal would not. There's a number of HOAs within the village where we do not do snow removal for them. They handle that privately amongst the residents that live on those streets for a number of reasons, whether it's because they want to do it more frequently than the village does it. Cul-de-sacs are often at the bottom of our list for removal due to prioritization, and so they don't want to wait longer to be done. So a lot of HOAs have elected to have that done. So there is a history of this kind of private snow removal dispersed across the village, I would say. As far as any compensation or change in your taxes, your property taxes go towards public pensions for public safety. So none of it goes towards snow removal. So there's going to be no property tax rebate for you or for any resident because they're doing their own snow removal, because the funds do not go to that service in any way. But to that extent though, as far as streetlights and other stuff like that, Karen, did you want to address any of that?
Sure, and you're correct on the snow plowing. It was part of the development agreement. And then the subdivision has actually not been completed by the developer yet. He still has not completed, obviously, those items, as well as our acceptance of the actual roadways for roadway maintenance and streetlight maintenance and underground pipe utilities. So it's yet to be finalized by the developer.
But once he does complete the installation of the lights, then it will be transferred over?
Yeah, for
Correct.
the assets and questions as far as streets, sewers, and lights, yes, correct.
Deposit, whatever's done. builder, correct?
Correct.
Correct, except for snow plowing. Snow plowing is the one thing that is the responsibility of the HOA per the development agreement for the subdivision.
And that's strictly because of the road size. They made a decision and that was part of the compromise when they wanted to get approval. We literally cannot get our equipment down that street because of the size. And so it's a safety issue for our staff as well as for you guys as well. Smaller equipment would be able to manage that. And so that's why they made a decision. It's unfortunate that, you know, you guys are bearing that burden, but if we would have to look at some drastic changes if we were to try to take that on. And that would be a cost that we'd have to discuss with the.
And one final question, is there another time that we can address this and maybe talk about it in a different forum? Because I know I myself, we have a 24-foot trailer and we have no problem turning it around into that cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I think one thing that we can do is, you know, if you would just give your contact information either to the side table here or Karen can maybe meet you outside, we can exchange information. I think we can schedule a meeting with you and anyone else on the street that would like to have a conversation about it. And we can kind of discuss those challenges and whatnot. So
All right. Thank you for your time.
thank you so much. Sometimes we don't always have the best news, so I apologize, but I want to give you a straight answer. So, Madam Clerk, do we have any other comment?
Last one, Stephen Montoya.
Okay, nope, that's fine. If you feel satisfied with that, and I know we'll continue to have a conversation with the neighborhood to see if there are opportunities for us to make modifications or whatnot. It's just right now, those are the conditions that we have to deal with. It's not just the truck, the plows are pretty big and their radius of what they push the snow in is kind of the bigger issue there. But I think, you know, we can obviously have a conversation and see what is possible. So with that being said, are there any other members of the public that wish to address the board at this time? Let the record show none. We'll move on to officials and staff reports. Under mine, unfortunately, I have a little bit of a lengthy one, so I just want to thank the board and specifically Trustee Pierkowski for chairing the last meeting. We welcomed our newest addition to our family during that meeting, so I was a little bit indisposed with that. So we're very happy to have our healthy son with us, and so mom's doing great at home, and we're adapting to being a two-child household instead of one. So we're on one-on-one defense now, so that's a new world. So please be patient with your mayor. A little bit of old news. So last month we presented our innovation at the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference dinner, and we were awarded best presentation that night. So we have some new hardware that will be proudly displaying in Village Hall. So I want to thank staff's time and efforts towards that, and just kind of us being recognized by our other industry players about what we are doing here in the Village of Roselle. Would like to thank and congratulate the police department on having a successful neighborhood watch kickoff meeting. So I know there's a number of residents that attended that. And I know there's a lot more that are interested in joining in on that effort. So if you have any questions about it or want to set up one, please reach out to Roselle PD so that way you can get the information. It's really exciting to see this dormant program come back. And so thank you, Chief, and to all the staff involved and making that a reality as well for us. And then finally, something I just want to share on a personal note, I am currently soliciting the support of other mayors across the state to join the Illinois Firefighters Pension Investment Fund Board. This was created by state act when we consolidated pensions across the state into a consolidated police and fire board. I'm happy to say I'm the Illinois Municipal League endorsed candidate for that. And so I will find out this December if I've been elected, but I'm excited to serve and continue to advocate for not only our community, but communities across the state for smart pension policies in that sense. So with that being the case, that is all I have as a report tonight. I'll turn it over to the village trustees. Any trustees have a report tonight? Trustee Domke, is it sauce or is it gravy?
Us versus gravy, the Italian Roselle Sister Cities group, while they work for peace in the world, they also want to eat well. So this is Cousins Pizza has donated chicken Vesuvio dinners, and the Italian Pizza Kitchen is doing the salad, and Caputo's is donating the bread. I don't see any wine here, but I'm sure they'll find some somewhere. Anyway, it's Saturday at Trinity Lutheran, and you know, that's the place to be. 3:30 till 7. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. It helps.
All right, perfect. Any other trustees have a report tonight? Seeing none, village clerk. Village attorney. Village administrator. All right, moving on to unfinished business, we have the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, or non-controversial in nature, and will be enacted in one motion. There'll be no discussion of these items unless removed from the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda at this time? Let the record show none. Tonight we have Adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement by and between the Village of Roselle, Village of Bartlett, Village of Bensonville, Village of Hanover Park, Village of Itasca, Village of Schaumburg, City of Elgin, City of Wooddale, and the County of DuPage. Pass an ordinance establishing salaries and or compensation for Village of Roselle employees and officers. Adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a contract by and between the Village of Roselle and Snow Systems Incorporated, and adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the payment to Cargill Incorporated for the amount of, for the purchase of road salt in the amount not to exceed of $107,890. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Trustee Pankowski.
Aye.
That motion carries. We'll move on. We have nothing under community development tonight, administration or fire, but please, Trustee Lanisa.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance amending Chapter 13, Article 1, Section 13-9 and 13-10 of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Roselle.
Is there a second? Any discussion? And I think, just to be clear, this is just updating typos in the ordinance itself, as well as making sure it's in compliance with state of Illinois policy as well. So nothing new on our end. So some record keeping business. There's no discussion from the board. Madam Clerk, we have a roll call, please.
Trustee Lanisa.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Forsythe.
Aye.
Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Pankowski.
Aye.
That motion carries. That's it for police tonight. We have nothing under public works. Finance, Trustee Forsythe.
Thank you, Mayor Pileski. I would like to move approval of the accounts payable list for October 28th, 2024 in the amount of $1,755,781.72.
Second.
Any discussion on the bills list tonight? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Forsythe.
Aye.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Pankowski.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa.
Aye.
That motion carries.
And lastly, I would like to move adoption of a resolution regarding the proposed 2024 property tax levy for the Village of Roselle.
Second.
Any discussion on this item? I think just a few things to be very clear. I know a lot of people are looking at their property tax bills. I know I am myself. We made a project and our amount went up. The village is, we don't set a rate, we set a levy. And what that means is we say the amount of money we want to collect, and the county and township figure out then what that amount applies to each property. And so the village doesn't say the rate's going to be 1% or 2%. We simply say these are the funds that we need. And so for this upcoming year, it's accounting for an increase just shy of $300,000. That's across everything in the village. So our total property tax levy that's being proposed is just north of $7 million, which is substantially lower than most other taxing bodies and as a part of your property tax bill. A lot of this is going towards public safety pensions. When we hear pensions, I think there's a lot of concerns about, well, are there elected officials collecting pensions? And there's no currently elected official on this village board that's receiving a public pension. So that is something I just want to clarify. I know some communities have different things. There's a Daily Herald article talking about elected official compensation. So the Village of Roselle, the first time in decades, doesn't have a single elected official enrolled in a public pension. And so that's something I'm very proud of that we've been able to do over the last couple of years. So this is purely going towards public safety, good, and village services, and it's not benefiting us in any way. And I think the board has done a good job of making sure that we keep these as moderate and low as possible. So nothing new from our new authority as well. So we're abiding by the rules that we've always abided by before home rule. Any discussion or comments from the board? That being the case, could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Forsythe.
Aye.
Trustee Pankowski.
Aye.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
That motion carries. We'll now move on to new business, probably one of the most important contracts we get to discuss every couple of years. Receive an update on the contract negotiations for the refuse and recycling contract with Flood Brothers Disposal, and to provide direction to staff. So I know Mr. Galloway is sick, so we'll turn it over to Assistant Village Administrator Brian Jonas.
Hard to believe that 5 years is coming up, but it is. So as the board recalls, we've received direction to start negotiation process with Flood Brothers on a new contract coming up that expires in March of next year. We did some of the research that the board asked us to do in terms of potential enhancements to the yard waste program and food scrap program as well, and have met with Flood numerous times and come up with kind of two options for the board to consider tonight. The first option is the current program, kind of status quo with the best pricing available, which has no kind of changes to core services. I'll get to kind of what both of these proposals entail in terms of contract language and other things that are tied to both options. But the first option is no changes to core services with the lowest increase in single-family rate, as well as kind of the lowest annual increases for the term of the 7-year contract. The second proposal is the removal of the yard waste sticker. So that cost then gets baked into the monthly rate for single family, which encompasses all senior accounts. And some multifamily accounts have yard waste, but most of them are centralized billing with their own landscaping companies. So that also maintains the yard waste cart program, which is the combination of the food scrap program. So that's currently what's available to residents, in which they can rent a yard waste container for the entire year for an annual cost. And with that, they can place eligible food scraps along with yard waste itself during the yard waste season. We currently have about 1% of all residential accounts that participate in that program currently. So just for the demand sake of just yard waste in general, what we see from a sticker purchase perspective is it varies every year, but it's around 20,000 to 30,000 stickers, just to kind of give a context into how much participation we have for that type of consideration, as well as the food scrap program as well. There's no way we can receive itemized reports that tell us exactly how much food scrap participation is included in the yard waste program for those that rent a cart, but we assume it's right around, 1% at most, just from the people that do rent that or participate in the program. So for additional food scrap options, we have kind of researched like local options for residents to partake that are cost effective. So the first option is the DuPage Yard Waste Midwest Compost in West Chicago, which is also where some of our refuse is transported to that transporting center in West Chicago from flood already. And residents can drop off buckets for a fee of $5 per bucket. Or the second option is Sustain DuPage Garden. That's a sustainability garden that's located in Wheaton. It's about 20 minutes away in downtown Wheaton, where people can actually drop off leaves and then eligible food scraps. It's not as inclusive as our current program and what's eligible from a food scrap or composting perspective, but currently there's no charge for that service. So people can go and drop that off depending on just demand and space that's available at that location. Just want to get through really quick just what both proposals do entail kind of as a package deal to consider. So the first thing is the grandfathered senior rate removal over the duration of the 7-year contract. So we kind of phased out the removal of that program. And if the board recalls, we've had grandfathered senior rate long before flood. So when we were with our previous incumbent provider, Republic Services, there were certain selection of seniors that received a 50% discount from the single family home rate. That got incorporated into the first negotiation that we did 4 years ago into the Flood Brothers account. So there's about 400 of those accounts, but to drive, probably the just best overall economic proposal that we could get across the board, it includes kind of phasing those grandfathered seniors out, which will never increase in number, will only always decrease, to match kind of the current senior rate, which is roughly about 30% off of the single family rate. For the commercial rates, you're looking at a first year increase of around 6% for all collection, both refuse and recycling, with a 4% yearly increase. And then for special events, we talked about the increase in downtown special events going on next year and just kind of what we've seen just in general from service demand. We offered to increase kind of 10 days for collection days just to accommodate the concert in the parks that are enhanced, and then the market as well between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And then also include a couple porta potties in the municipal campus area for kind of public restrooms that would remain locked until the special events and would be kind of emptied on a weekly basis. The emergency and disaster cleanup service. So this is something that's written into the current contract that was a part of the previous contract, and it's pretty much for major emergency disasters that are declared by the mayor, where we can tap into kind of a small amount of like $5,000 for disaster recovery. And then we can negotiate with flood on any additional roll-off containers and things like that. So we've never actually had a disaster that's been declared by the mayor where we've utilized this service. So we talked more about like, well, what do we see normally that occurs throughout the year that we could take advantage of? And really that ties into the yard waste itself. So sometimes we have like those high wind kind of storms or just things that happen where branches fall off, and we've worked with the board in the past and kind of done some in-house cleanup through our public works department. So what this does is kind of piggybacks off of those moments and gives us a couple days throughout the year when we have those kind of micro bursts or just high wind or just impactful storms, and allow Flood Brothers to kind of help with that cleanup at no cost to residents. That is with obviously following kind of the status quo regulations when it comes to how yard waste is placed on the curbside in terms of length and weight. And then both of these proposals also include the addition of compactors that are attached to roll-off containers for commercial businesses that are 20 cubic yards or more. So this is something that was discussed in the first round of negotiations. We have about a handful of those businesses currently that are utilizing other providers. Flood can service them without any issues. The pricing is competitive. But again, we didn't include them in the first round of negotiation on the commercial side. So these proposals include attracting those handful of businesses that Flood does not currently service. And it is a franchise agreement that encompasses all commercial and residential accounts in the village. So it's not out of the ordinary to make this type of change. And then the additional services that are just listed at the bottom. So those are just the nominal increases or no changes that are some of the additional collection services. So the yard waste cart, the $210, that's up from $207 currently. The special pickup, so that's bulk items or white goods that require a special service to be collected. That's $30. The e-waste recycling, that remains the same at $25. And then the hazardous waste collection goes up to $30 from $25. So I know that's a lot of information, but I have two representatives from Flood here tonight as well, and we'll answer any questions that the board has.
Thank you so much. Very meaty update. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Domke?
Is there a way we can have the fall cleanup a little later? Because when they come out, there's still plenty of yard waste.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and honestly, Flood has always honored every request that we've ever made with the Midwest kind of unpredictability of that service.
Global warming, the leaves are not leaving the trees.
So right now, the language is the first week in April and then the last week in November. It is tied on at the end of the year and beginning of the year with the actual opening and closure of the yard waste landfills. But Flood has always allowed us to delay a week with enough notice to their staff, really, as long as it doesn't impact, obviously, their logistics of transporting that waste to where it needs to go. So it's hard to put in an exact time because obviously, as you know, it can change every year, but they've yet to deny any type of request to delay that or.
A week later, because that's when I have all my gutters cleaned too, because of these. Just, okay, that's the one. I have one other one, if I may.
Yeah.
Some of our trustees went to visit Flood Brothers, and I think it was, maybe you can add some knowledge to this. But I see so much recyclable that's not getting recycled in the village. And, you know, and I used to work with a lot of metals and stuff. I know how much energy it takes to make metals. And you see aluminum cans just thrown in with garbage. Is there a way, I mean, I know you said something like if there's a pizza box, the entire bin of recycle gets thrown in the garbage. How can we, you know, be better at preparing the recycle so that you guys do the real thing instead of having the junk the stuff?
Yeah, for me,
Big
you
in
know,
my
we've
heart.
talked about that with Flood, you know, the experts, partly on the tour, but also through these negotiation meetings. And to me, it's more of like a educational campaign that
Yeah.
the village can partner with Flood. They've participated more and more in special events. I think to us, that's our job to kind of help promote what really affects their operations too. Because we know that commingling trash with recyclables and how easy it is to contaminate entire, 95-gallon toter. It really comes down to the resident or business themselves and their knowledge, and then them actually doing what is right. So,
And I've had residents like accuse Flood Brothers of not caring about recycling, and I think it's bad for your reputation. I think that's wrong of them to say that. And I think we should have some kind of an education, some way saying, hey, the onus is on us.
yeah, I think especially with their new facility, there's no reason why we can't promote some of that currently, like on our website and things like that, to better educate residents, not only on what to do, but where it goes and what happens to it.
I
And
think you guys are doing a great job. I'd say that.
Well, and I think the other thing, Wayne, is we do have visibility. I think this is something that we can just do a better job as we've, and I know we'll talk about this later with our Q3 kind of metrics update for the village. We get and have the opportunity to have more reporting from Flood about how much of our recycling is actually good. And so I think what we can do is, coupled with what has been shared with a marketing campaign, we can actually see in working with Flood, okay, if we did an education bit, do we see our recyclable rate go up or do we see it stagnate? And that way we can actually track and see, is what we're trying to do working or not? And so, maybe we can get Willie the Wolf out and do a recycling Roselle minute or something of that except, but
Us too, David, and the Taste of Roselle, they're throwing it all in one big garbage can. All the aluminum cans are going
yeah.
in.
Well, I think that's where I think the special events expansion really helps. And we're for the first time actually having public recyclable containers on Main
You've got
Street.
those on Main Street.
And so that will be also another service where I think part of it is for some of those events like you talked about, we never provided recycling as an option. So that was not something that people could even do. And I think that's now reflected in the contract a little bit more. So, but all very well-made points.
We have to do it as a team.
You have a pulse on how many bags, yard waste
Yeah.
residents use?
so that's a good question. So we have tonnage reports and then we have obviously how many stickers are purchased, but we don't know exactly on a per resident basis, how many stickers an average resident uses. I mean, if you do like the quick kind of macro math, you're looking at around 3 to 4 stickers per account from what we have, from what's purchased. But obviously we know that there's some accounts there that have their own landscaping companies. We know some addresses probably use more stickers, but on an just pure average basis, looking at how many stickers are purchased per year based on how many accounts are eligible for the sticker program, you're looking at around 3.5 stickers per year. Yep.
Mr. Prokowski.
Couple questions, but the first one is for Flood Brothers. What types of plastics actually does your recycling facility handle? Like, does it go all the way up to the 5s, or is it basically the straightforward kind of 1, maybe 2? I've always been curious about that. We don't seem to have that really listed anywhere.
And just for the audience at home and here, sake, if you don't mind just introducing yourself.
Michael Flood with Flood Brothers. Thank you. To answer your question, so we process, and in the literature that, when we took over the community and we posted on our website, it has kind of the do's and don'ts with the recycling. So with the, numbered recycling, we take everything 1 through 7, less the 6. And as we, mentioned, a lot of the material for the recycling aspect doesn't always go to our facility. We have partner facilities with all aligned with the same kind of, materials that can be accepted, which we then put together for, public education and outreach, as well as to kind of carry on from yours and to your trustee Domke's point. Part of what Matt and Brian and Micah kind of reached out was how can we, and even in sustainability team, how can we partner to kind of educate more? So one of the things that we've begun to add more of a marketing specialist with our team. We just hired somebody to do more of this engagement with the community events, education in the schools, Willie the Recycling Wolf, to do more outreach and get in front of the residents and customers commercially. But also I think videos. I think videos are a key thing. So we're going to start pushing more of that out that you guys can share with your residents through our website, YouTube page, things of that nature, because I think obviously a lot of people are visual. sending them a piece of paper with the list, probably gets thrown in a drawer, maybe a video gets caught up.
Recycled.
Yeah, recycle. But I don't know if I answered your question. Trish.
No, that was it, because I just did find it on your website. You kind of go a bit into it, but I think that is very important to let people know. You guys actually do go higher because, part of conversations, you'll hear people say like, oh, most recycling, you can only put one in. So then they are tossing the things that are recyclable because there are places that can't take a 3. So, I think that's one of those things that, like, as part of the information campaign, we're considering is very important to get out there. So, because admittedly, I've looked for this before and was not able to find it. So, I was able to find it after a few more buttons pressed, but it's important information.
Other comments or questions from the board? Trustee
I
Lanisa?
really do think the education in the school level and the grade school in particular is extremely important because there's nothing better than a 7-year-old telling you how to recycle. And it drives it home. I think it's really important.
That's what we've learned. Kids are going to go home, bring the literature home, and push it on the parents, and
Yep.
watch you put something in the wrong bin, and you're going to.
Trustee Domke?
Yes, Brian, so there's the one plan that we have right now, I can have that. I don't have to do the yard waste thing, right? I can get the minimum package. There's a bit different options is what you're.
Yeah, so the first proposal is status quo. So that's the current sticker program, right? So throughout the yard waste season, to place yard waste out for collection, you have to purchase a sticker and then it has to be within the
To your point, we have landscapers. A lot of us have landscapers and we don't have to worry about the yard waste in a way. So why would we want to even have it? Okay, so that's one thing. And then the other proposals, you can add more things if you want to pay for monthly, right?
So the second proposal is all inclusive, right? So it removes the yard waste sticker and then bakes that cost into the monthly residential rate, right? So that removes the idea that you have to purchase a sticker and place that on a bundle or a bag for yard waste. So it's pretty much, your unlimited, I guess you could call it, collection of yard waste, baked into the monthly rate. Obviously though, the yard waste collection season is from April to November. So that rate being baked into your monthly rate is encompassed for the entire year. So I do want to make that distinction.
So Wayne, that's a great segue. So I think really between the two, a lot of the sweeteners, if you will, stay the same regardless of it. So I think, the special event coverage, emergency and disaster cleanup services, commercial, industrial roll-off containers, those all kind of remain the same. Really, what I wanted to shift to now is between Exhibit A and Exhibit B in the packet, which structure is the board in favor of moving forward with, if they so choose. And so to put it numbers to it, so either sticking with our current plan, where you would have to buy stickers a la carte or purchase a unlimited cart. The monthly rate for that first contract year would be $21.30. And at the end of the terms of the contract would get to as high as $25.56 for a single family home. And it varies across all the different levels. Or in Exhibit B, where we then have vehicle stickers kind of abolished. It's yard waste, sorry. Yard waste. Jumping the gun there. Yard waste stickers would be a thing of the past, and people would be able to put out unlimited yard waste. And so the first year of that contract per month cost for a single family home would be $25.75. And by the end of that contract, it'd be $30.93 at the end of that contract period through 2032. So, and the rates go up across all the other ones, but just to kind of simplify it down there. So kind of want to get a pulse from the board on which they prefer. So Wayne, it sounded like you prefer Exhibit A. Keep it as is.
On Proposal 1, I'm happy with what I'm doing.
Okay, thank you.
I think simple math looks at if you use anywhere between 1 and 2 stickers a month, you're probably better off with the fixed rate.
Which would be, sorry, which one?
Item 2, I'm sorry.
Oh, so, okay. So is that the one that you prefer?
Personally, or do I want to do what's best?
Well,
Yeah,
board needs to make a decision and vote on something. So if you had to vote, which one would you prefer to be voting for?
I think I would prefer that we do 2, but I'm going to vote 1.
Okay.
I'm going to vote 1. I think that 23% increase kind of it's pretty hard and I think we gotta look at that. And if people aren't using, but 2 or 3 stickers, is that a per month? Is that what you were saying, or per the whole season?
It works out to about, if you use more than 24 in a year, you'll save money under that plan. If
The
you
new
use
plan,
less,
the
you'll-
23% increase?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm still gonna stick
Yeah.
with my first.
Okay. Moving on the line, trustee Trejo.
I think one's fine.
Exhibit A. Please. Number 1.
Yeah. One.
All right.
Okay.
Yep, that, I think, I appreciate the effort there, and I think it's always good to have numbers, because when people ask and they say, I really hate yard waste stickers, we can we have the numbers and we understand it, but I think in a world where there's increasing costs across the board, this is one area where, you know, we can certainly help provide relief. I think from my perspective, we have to really utilize that emergency disaster cleanup service really strategically, because I think that's where that's gonna impact residents more. So if we can find a way to leverage that in a way where after we have storms, we can enhance what we do. There's a lot of misconception about the village, obviously discontinued brush pickup a long time ago since the recession because of budget constraints. We also don't have the equipment to do just storm pickup in-house constantly. A lot of that ends up getting out of house. And so I think this is a way for us to kind of augment what we do and to kind of help us save some money internally, as well as make sure residents get service. So I think that's one thing that stands out to me. Trustee Trejo and then Yurkowski.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, another thing with all this, I think it would be also good to socialize the yard waste container more, because like I talked to a resident over the weekend and they had no idea that it even existed, and I think he was a newer resident, but he was telling me like, you know, he has tons and tons of bags of yard waste, so like, I don't know how, I know we marketed it before, but I think like, you know, Roselle Minute or.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, and I think, so we have it on our website and everything, and new resident guide, but it may be something we can work with Flood on, is when a resident calls into Flood to set up a new account, kind of like what information is generally shared on behalf of like village services,
Yeah,
where it's like, you know, we can work with them to know exactly kind of what's said to a resident. And if it's kind of like maybe waiting for them to say something about yard waste and then offering that, or directing them to our website, I'm sure we can make sure that we kind of just advocate and share that message.
Sounds like a good March water utility bill message maybe we can put in there too.
yeah,
So
and I think for new residents, I think that's great, because if someone knows, hey, I have, you know, a ton of trees, I know I'm gonna be using these bags, and then even Flood could tell them like, hey, here's the math. If you think you're gonna use X amount of, you know, bags, like, you know, whatever it is, like 80 bags, you're gonna be paying, you know, per bag, and it's cheaper just to do the yard waste, so the cart.
Trustee Prokowski.
Just a couple of questions, I guess, for Flood again. One, I'm just kind of curious, in other towns that you've kind of gone from having a yard waste sticker to having this plan, have you seen an increase in the amount of yard waste being picked up? And the second question is, how much of an issue do you guys kind of have with people potentially putting yard waste in their regular garbage can? And what kind of problems does that cause?
So to answer your first question, we service over 35 communities. None of them have switched from a sticker program to an all-inclusive program. Some have, and nobody switched even from an all-inclusive to a sticker program. So I couldn't tell you. Community, we very rarely, I don't know if I've ever seen it, you have that, the community in our marketplace has transitioned to that. But to answer your question about yard waste, it's, you know, it was a big no-no when the landfills banned all the yard waste. Our drivers do their best. I mean, even when it comes to contamination with recycling, they try to capture that at the collection point. But you know, you might see somebody try to sneak something in, but you're not seeing somebody, you know, sneak a whole craft, you know, bag of grass or something at the bottom of the garbage can and see it. So it's never risen up to the level of myself to reach out to the village about, you know, an issue where residents are taking advantage of avoiding the stickers.
All right, I'm just curious.
No.
So with consensus on proposal 1, with the other new contract terms included, is there any concerns or questions from the board about moving forward with those? Cheryl?
How do you let the residents know if they've moved into the senior Is there something in the newsletter that tells them what the senior rates are? So
Yeah, we always have the rates posted on our website. I mean, I think there's an opportunity there, like to use the newsletter, if we wanted to market the senior rate a little bit more effectively, rather than just our generic kind of, here are all of our rates, here's like information on our website, we could do that. But no, we don't have any kind of indication unless they qualify for an additional senior program, then there may be an option there to.
so they have to speak up in order to get it themselves.
They usually know. I mean, they usually will, honestly, I mean, they usually are well aware and will look it up, but we could, I mean, it's, not, not too much to be more direct with that too in some of our publications.
Thank you.
Other questions or concerns about the other proposals? Is the board then generally in favor of moving forward then with entertaining a contract at a future board meeting that would encompass proposal number 1, rates, and then the other new contract terms that have been updated for grandfathered senior rates, commercial rates, special events, emergency and disaster cleanup services, and then the commercial industrial roll-off containers?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, trustee Trejo.
All right, I just thought about one more question too. Is there, because obviously the whole agreement's not here, but I have heard of other towns like garbage providers trying to like tack on a fee for using a credit card. Is there anything in the language that like will prohibit Flood from doing it, or is it currently in there?
We don't have language. Yeah.
So I think what we can do, it sounds like generally everyone's in favor of it, but let's just get the fees and any, we'll call them hidden fines, for lack of better words, disclosed before we go forward with a formal approval. Yeah.
No problem. Yeah.
All right. Staff have enough direction then to move forward? Okay. Appreciate the conversation tonight. Moving right into our 2022-2025 strategic plan report. So Brian.
All right. So, this is the Q3 strategic plan report. We're about 62% through the strategic plan to date. So we have a little disruption, not major disruption, on the 17 initiatives. So as always, I'm going to run through kind of the 5 priorities, kind of where we're at with certain things. I can answer any questions. And then as always, the complete report is attached to the memo below as well. So for financial stewardship, your general fund reserves remain at the 47 or above the 47% threshold that you have as a policy. As you're well aware, the home rule revenue enhancements were passed on July 8th. And we continue to monitor the effectiveness and kind of just the progress for those revenues, obviously moving into next year as well. For kind of some grant updates, so as you know, we were awarded the $250,000 DCEO grant for the Rosemont Street culvert that was completed with some punch list items remaining, and also miscellaneous stormwater projects. And then also another DCO grant of $100,000 for the Plum Grove Road Bridge resurfacing, which is set for construction for next year. And the board is aware, but the $20 million request to Senator Duckworth for the wastewater treatment plant improvements was rejected. And as well, as part of the initiative, we'll be evaluating the village's fee structure. So we'll kind of did a comprehensive analysis of just all village fees and kind of where we sit from a comparison standpoint and just efficiency as well. So we'll be working kind of through the last quarter of this year and into next year as well with the working group of the board to kind of come up with potential recommendations to make it a little bit easier to not only locate some of the fees that are included in our ordinances, but also look at the fees themselves and make sure that they're comparable. For focus redevelopment, so Firewater Barbecue, we don't have the coming soon sign yet, but that is to come in the near future. And they have submitted kind of an incomplete P&Z packet, but Karen is working on the finalization of that. We kind of expect that to hit P&Z most likely Q1 of next year. As you know, we're waiting on the results of the Roselle Public Library referendum for the potential redevelopment of the Trinity site. Our occupancy rates remain above the thresholds that we've set. And we're also continually looking at our TIF programs. So Matt Galloway has been working with other communities, specifically on the strategic kind of incentive program that is kind of those a little bit more conversational in nature with some businesses, whether it's expansion or just something that hits a higher threshold than our current grant programs, and kind of coming up with a little bit extra framework around that to streamline it, make it easier for people to submit conversations to us, and also kind of help with some of the borders or I'd say just benchmarks associated with what the village is comfortable at providing as incentives for those type of larger projects. As you know, the manufacturing meetup event occurred on October 23rd at BOS. So it was another successful event where we had representatives from other state and county and local agencies to kind of talk about trends in the manufacturing industry. And we'll kind of be looking at not just participation rate, but also content on additional events that we could do for our business community for next year. As you know, this is kind of the third year in a row that we focused on manufacturing, which is great. But we're also kind of looking at other industries that we could focus on, whether it be retail or other sectors of the community. For reliable infrastructure, so design and construction projects for 2024 are underway and they're on schedule. So the water main replacement program is under construction and almost completed with punch list items. And the board is going to receive kind of a full update on CIP here after I get done talking. So preliminary design of the Devlin A20 expansion and the Bowerman BNR projects are still ongoing. And asset management, as you know, is incorporated in the strategic plan. And with kind of fiscal year 25, incorporating kind of more of a look into the village's entire kind of IT asset from a software, hardware, but also policy kind of standpoint. We're going to be waiting for a recommendation regarding that software sometime next year. So looking at that assessment that we'll be working with staff on, and then also kind of using the budget process more than likely next year to talk about some of these heavy liftings of software that can increase operational efficiencies, but also the customer experience. So for operational sustainability, still working on updating or onboarding our HR generalist. So she's been here for over 6 months now, which is crazy fast, but she's doing a good job and kind of leading some additional training opportunities that we have incorporated in the strategic plan, primarily using the wellness committee. So members from each department get together on a monthly basis, talk about special events, but also talk about ways that we can increase kind of whether it's the internal onboarding process or whether it's other training opportunities from an enterprise-wide standpoint. So one thing we've been looking at is just kind of because of the internal promotions that we've been successful at doing, especially this year, looking at kind of enhancing that internal promotion onboarding experience and giving people the resources immediately that they need while moving up into kind of supervisory or managerial or leadership positions. So as well as kind of the onboarding of the contractual IT manager. So Dan Irwin came on board from Prescient, our incumbent IT contractor, just after January this year. So he's kind of gone through a full year of getting to know Roselle policy, getting through our annual maintenance programs, and then also through the budget process. So he'll be working with me on that IT assessment in the last quarter of this year and into next year. So we're currently in a strong staffing position with 5 current vacancies. About 95% of those are due to internal promotions. So it's a really good thing that we're hiring, we're promoting people from within that are creating these vacancies and then attracting talent from the outside or just allowing people to move up in the organization where we can. And then, as you know, Jason led the organizational culture, values, and employee engagement project. So that was completed. And we're now working to operationalize the values into our organization and kind of came up with a framework that we'll be working with the executive team to kind of continue pushing that forward across our organization. For customer experience, so Emily's working on kind of continual changes to our communication policies and has done a good job working with internal departments kind of on standardizing some of our messaging and just the roles that each individual plays within departments on not only social media content, but just better engagement internally to promote just services, programs, changes, so that residents and businesses and the like are all updated on everything going on from the village's finances and services. And then the cloud permit, our new building permitting software that the board approved earlier this year, is almost done with implementation. We have 2 modules left to go. But currently, the building permitting side, which was pretty much the heaviest side, is completely live. So that offers a full online experience for contractors and residents to not only apply for building permits, but to also receive all of their packet information from the website directly. They can talk directly with staff through a messaging portal, and then also schedule inspections from the same portal. So literally, somebody working on a deck, or whether it's an interior remodel of their home, and literally do this all from the comfort of their own home without the need to come to Village Hall. And they can communicate with staff in real time through this portal. So we have a timestamp of all communications. So that's, we've been about a quarter of fully live for that. And we continue to kind of monitor just feedback that we get, but we've had 0 complaints, and most people have in fact just told us that it's been a good experience overall, and they're happy with the change for that.
The nice thing is, if you don't want to use it, you don't have to at this point, correct?
No, I mean, people can always.
Everyone's at a different
Yeah.
adaptation curve, but so if those who like paper better, they can show up at our counter, talk to us and see a person, but for everyone else who wants to move through it, they can.
Yep, exactly. And then from another software side, so we did implement a new FOIA tracking software, which is Next Request. So this has been up for about a month. And this is to decrease employee kind of time. We used to track kind of our FOIAs on a master spreadsheet between our current FOIA officers, which are housed in, the deputy clerk is our main FOIA officer, as you know, but we also have a member of the fire department as well as the police department that handle FOIA specific to their department. So this centralized that information allows people to go in, not only communicate directly with our staff through that portal, much like Call Permit, but also they can look through village documents, whether it's ordinances, resolutions, some contracts, through our portal that's listed on there as well, to kind of help educate people on public information that they may submit a FOIA request for that's already public and on our website or listed somewhere, to help kind of reduce the staff time that it takes to kind of collate similar information, especially on an annual basis. We find that, there's certain trends when it comes to FOIA. And we want to make sure that not only we're recording that correctly, but also that we're providing an effective service and being as transparent as possible. So that kind of concludes my report on Q3. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and likely the next report will be done like we did last year, probably sometime in January due to the holidays and the budget process.
Any questions from the board? It's a very encompassing report, so a lot of information is
I'm
sifted through, so.
surprised how many FOIA requests you're still getting, because I haven't heard too much about it, so you must be handling them pretty well. The software must help a lot, because what's the number? It's really.
Yeah, so like last quarter, I know like for Q3, we got a little over 100. And we were at a total of 500 through the year.
It's a lot.
For those at home, FOIA is Freedom of Information Act, which is a law that requires any government body to return information that's requested by any member of the public. I know one thing that the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference has been working with Springfield on is actually to introduce some amendments to the current statute. There's a huge increase, and I don't know how much we've seen it in Roselle, but of people requesting using FOIA to make for-profit content. So they have a YouTube channel or they have some kind of online platform. They're using FOIA and using essentially public resources and time to make a profit off of it. And so that's been something that we've been trying to cut down on some of the bad actors out there, because it is a powerful tool for the public to obtain information. However, it can be abused, and it is being abused, and some communities are going to court over it. So we've been very fortunate, but the volume is very substantial, to your
A
point.
lot of staff time. It
Yes.
could be.
Spent on other things for the community, so. Other questions or comments from the board? Well, appreciate all the work, and I know sometimes a lot of people always ask, why aren't we getting more grants? And we ask, and we asked for $20 million from Senator Duckworth, and we were told no. So, but on the other hand, ComEd's gonna give us $2,000 for Christmas lights, so yeah, it's a pittance, but there's something. But I know the team's working really hard, and there's a lot of things in the work for next year, so. With that being the case, this is a great time to transition to the fiscal year 2025 CIP, or Capital Improvement Plan presentation. My favorite thing of the year. So no pressure, Finance Director Tom Dahl. And I will say, as you're getting set up, I just really appreciate the time that staff puts into this report. I think it's really important because I think a lot of people in the town want to know, where's my money going and what am I getting for it? And this is where a lot of that money is going towards, and just really appreciate staff's time. I think the presentation looks better and better every year. So thank you for putting this together, because I really truly appreciate it. There's a lot of great information content in here. So
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. That was the best introduction I've gotten in a long time. So in the board packet tonight is the 2025-2029 capital improvement plan. As you said, this plan seeks to identify all of the capital projects that are needed over the next 5 years, both general and water sewer related, and also identify the funding that is needed. There are some projects that we do the planning for, a lot of the design, but since they are so costly, and think of the Seasons 4, Devlin, and Meacham Creek projects, that we're doing the design in order to get funding. So in those sheets and the project sheets that are in the capital improvement plan, and for those that are watching from home or watching this later, the packet does contain the full plan and project sheets for every project in the plan. We're always trying to get the funding, and once the funding is available, we will put that construction into the plan in the year that we're going to do it. So this CIP contains $106 million in projects, with 75% of that, almost $80 million, being wastewater treatment and the collections. And the budget, the 2025 budget that we'll be presenting next week, reflects total project costs and debt payments of 24.3 million, and then revenue of 25 million, leaving a balance of about 735,000. Again, this is a plan. We hope revenues come in higher and expenses come in lower, but that's the plan for right now.
And to put that into perspective, if you don't mind me
Sure, go
jumping in
ahead.
a little bit,
Interrupt at all.
that amount that we are set to pay for matches what we do in our general operating fund,
That is
correct?
correct.
I don't know if that's a milestone we want to celebrate or not, but I mean, it really just puts into perspective the amount of work and the investment we're putting into this town right now.
I mean, think in 5 years, and a lot of the projects that we're talking about, 106 million, we are going to do, and that's 106 million, and in 1 year, we're going to do the general fund and projects. So it is remarkable. A lot of that, as we said, 75% of that is wastewater treatment, and Brian mentioned it. A couple of the projects, but we're really starting the Boterman projects next year, the construction of those, and we're borrowing $13 million to pay for that. And that's why we had to pass that home rule sales tax, which was to pay for those loans. The village continues to seek out grant opportunities. That's all, pretty much all we do. We're juggling a very large pile of them at this moment, trying to get reimbursement, and then also in the application process. But as I said, much of the design work being planned will put the village in a better position to compete for grants. And again, you'll see some of those estimated funds, but the streetscaping and the pedestrian improvements are a perfect example on Roselle Road, where we're doing the design to now compete for grants.
And clearly, we're spending our money on things for the town instead of making sure our IT works here in Village Hall. So
So the CIP is split into 5 parts: streets and sidewalks, buildings and grounds, stormwater, the wastewater treatment and collection, and water and sewer. Within buildings and grounds, so within buildings and grounds, funding comes from utility taxes, and the projects take place in the General Capital Projects Fund. In 2025, we have garage door replacements and living area improvements in the fire department, a building generator and related transfer switch for public works, and the salt dome door and brine maker for snow removal. And then in the police department, the large project is the roof replacement And then we'll do masonry sealing of the brickwork and then office area improvements within the building. Streets and sidewalks, you can see utility taxes, local motor fuel, home rule sales tax, and the state motor fuel tax fund these projects. And the expenses are recorded in the general capital projects fund and the motor fuel tax fund. So this year, we have a $4.4 million investment. Street improvement program, we're now collecting. In fact, the September 1st is when the 0.2 cents per gallon local motor fuel tax went into effect. We are now collecting that from the gas stations. I'll be able to provide you with more information later this week. But it appears right now that we're on track for what we estimated for the collection. So there'll be an extra $250,000 added to the SIP in 2025. The Plum Grove Road Bridge will be resurfaced next year, and with a $100,000 DCEO grant that was received. Their total cost is, I believe, about $750,000, so it'll cover part of that. And again, there's streetscaping and pedestrian improvement plans for both Irving Park Road and Roselle Road. The General Capital Projects Fund and then the TIF funds are all pooling money for those design work.
And one quick question, and I may be remembering incorrectly, but the Plum Grove Road Bridge deck, that was a surprise that we got from the state at some point. Is that correct? Where we weren't sure if we were responsible for that one or not, 100%. I feel like I've got some old talk. Tollway, IDOT, or not toll, sorry, Illinois Toll Authority.
That's been defined in our agreement with the tollway for years, so.
Okay. But how many, so out of curiosity, so it's an expensive thing because it's an engineering feat. We're literally resurfacing a bridge that's over a active roadway. If we spent $700,000 resurfacing a typical road, how much further would that go? Just for the public's perspective.
A lot.
A lot further? Okay.
That's a technical term.
That's enough. Essentially, it's almost, I would say it's almost 70% of our annual street budget for just one project. And obviously we're going to find other sources of revenue such as our sales tax that we were able to implement to help cover that. But this was a massive thing that was going to be a huge hole in our ability to continue to maintain streets.
Yeah, actually, that's correct because we were going to reduce the street program, but luckily we won't have to do that. Another big project is the Irving Park Road pedestrian bridge. So we're continuing design work. Believe construction will be in 2026. That was correct. And then finally, the other project is Municipal Campus Improvements Phase 2. It'll be resurfacing the parking lot between Village Hall, pardon me, Police Department and not by the Fire Department, but in front of here, and including street lighting and other landscaping work for both the police and fire department buildings. We are receiving community project funding, so that is the earmarks that came through Congressman Krishnamurthy's office of $500,000. Just received the packet this weekend, so we are continuing with that application process. Next is the stormwater system, also paid for by utility taxes and home rule sales tax out of the General Capital Projects Fund. This would include storm sewer improvement, yard flood assistance, and then there's a new program, the ditch and culvert replacement, where it's $100,000 now will go annually to rehabbing ditch and culverts in those parts of town that have those. So again, the other grant that we received from the community funding grant that we received from Congressman Krishnamurthy, the $750,000 for the Seasons 4 and Devlin Basin drainage basins for the design and permitting. That will continue in 2025. There will be miscellaneous projects of $200,000, the culvert replacement program of $100,000, and then you see the drainage basins. That's all engineering to complete those projects, or to complete the plans, I should say. Wish we can complete the projects for that little. Water system is paid for by the CIS, the capital improvement surcharge. Also, home rule sales tax will be included in that. But mainly it's the CIS that pays for this program. This would be water main replacement and the lead service line. As you know, the village is required to replace the lead service lines. So this year, there's projects in, I believe it's Woodworth. Yep, Woodworth area. They'll be contacting residents and verifying that they do have lead service lines. There's nearly $1.7 million allocated to the water main replacement program. And I believe that's Thorndale, right? And Park. Oh, Tom Place.
Town Acres and
Town Acres,
Prospect.
thank you. Town Acres. So the area up there where we've seen a lot of breaks. So the 2025 investment is 1.75 million. And finally, it's the wastewater system. This is our biggest. This is CIS, home rule sales tax, and really the IEPA loans, the home rule sales tax will pay for those later. Annual programs here, backflow prevention, sanitary sewer and manhole lining. Village does have 2 wastewater treatment plants and 10 sanitary sewer lift stations. Wastewater treatment plants, if you have those at home, those are very, very expensive. We pay a lot of money to maintain these, but also we have to improve them. And the Devlin plant needs to be expanded, and the A2O work that needs to be done, and Boderman needs the phosphorus, the BNR, the biological nutrient removal, and expansion as well. So these are very expensive pieces of equipment or pieces of property that we need to maintain and improve all the time to keep up with changing regulations.
I think you're earning your honorary civil engineering degree there. Rattling those off naturally.
Sounds good. I have a BS in biology, so.
It comes in handy.
I would, yeah. My old research comes up. And again, it says here, must to keep in compliance with the new IEPA mandates. So almost $14 million is planned in our wastewater collection system. I'm not going to talk through them all, but the Boderman, the BNR clarification, clarifier rehab, and the headworks improvements, those are all construction projects. They'll be bid as one project, so you'll see that at some point early in the year. And those, I believe, will straddle 2 fiscal years. But that'll take up the bulk of the $13 million that the village is borrowing, or all of the $13 million that the village will be borrowing from the IEPA.
And those loans, what's the rate that those are usually established since they're subsidized?
1.81. But then we also would get, I believe it's a quarter off that for being a small city.
No,
So it's under
it is to
2%.
our advantage. And I think looking at these numbers, obviously, we just could not operate or save $13 million when we're talking about spending, in excess of $90 million on these types of projects and paying cash. So.
Correct. Yeah, it's, very appreciative of the home rule sales tax, the ability to put that through and be able to pay for these. We wouldn't be able to do it without that. Also included is the Devlin, the A2O improvements and expansion. That's the engineering, that construction will start 2026, provided we get the IEP loans, but it has been set aside but not approved it'll be done next year. And then finally, the Devlin lift station rehab, $850,000. Again, lift stations, though not as expensive as treatment plants, but this one will be rehabilitated at a cost of $850,000, just like some of the other ones were. The problem with this one, of course, is it may need to be moved because it's right there on Roselle Road, right on the Parkway.
And those that are not familiar, lift stations literally help pump or move whatever you are flushing to the treatment plant. Without those, they could be stuck.
Yep.
Great backlogs is very important for home values and for the natural flow and utilization of our wastewater treatment system.
Because we use gravity for the most part, but the lift stations really help it get to to the end.
What few hills we have here.
Yes, yeah, the hills. Otherwise, I believe that's all I have. Again, the packet contains all of the sheets. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now, or in the future.
Thank you so much. I know it's a lot of sobering information. Obviously, I feel like we're kind of in the middle of the tunnel, but we've got a nice flashlight that the community has given us through home rule to help us actually know how we're funding and paying for these improvements. I think every community has different challenges, and so I think it's hard to compare us against another community because we have two sewer treatment plants. But on the other hand, a lot of our buildings are very well maintained. Other communities are dealing with a lot of infrastructure issues in different ways, shapes, and forms. I hear it all the time. And so I think it's important to understand that we're all tackling different things in our own respective communities. But with that being said, I know there's probably a lot of questions or feedback from the board. So Trustee Domke.
Tom, you're using Trinity Lutheran's lot for a retention or detention area? You have like these agreements all together with Roselle Middle School and
So those sites were identified.
Seasons 4 Park and all that?
So they're at various stages of it. So we've had conversations. So Trinity, for instance, they did not express a willingness to allow us to use it. These are just simply locations that were identified through our engineering firm for ideal locations. We are in conversation with District 12. They are waiting for other discussions amongst their board to happen before they come back to us. We've talked with other private property owners, whether it's been other places of faith or other instances like the Bloomingdale Park District. We're actively working with them. We have an agreement in structure or form that we're working through. So, but those are simply the locations that have been identified, not necessarily finalized. Obviously, we would rather have an agreement so we don't have to acquire property versus having to do something more forcibly. So, good question though. Other questions or comments from the board?
And one more if nobody else asks.
Floor is yours.
This Devlin Waste Treatment Plant, are we maxed out there as far as development on the east side of Roselle?
Well, that's
Ever be able to do another Metro 19 on the east side of Roselle with that water treatment plant?
So I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director.
Not at the current capacity that's at, but we're also reaching capacity just from an I&I standpoint, which is triggering our expansion in that plant.
So then if we had a big developer that wanted to throw a lot of money in our town, we would have to throw a lot of money into our infrastructure to accommodate that.
Currently where it's at, correct, but we would have to evaluate with this upcoming expansion, what would be feasible for us to do in the future.
And there wouldn't be any option like sending it up to Schaumburg and their treatment plant or anything like that, right? We would have to basically contemplate another plant.
No, there's always opportunities for expansion, but it's costly, as you can see by the costs for the projects noted. Everything that goes to MWRD and Schaumburg has to be within the Cook County limits. So anything within Cook County, within our community does go to MWRD. The rest of it goes to our two wastewater treatment plants.
So we couldn't maybe accept a great deal.
You'd have to have a footprint to put it on in the first place.
Yeah.
Other questions? Oh,
And just the last thing, how much can you expand Devlin right now? Are we at the max now with what we're doing with the IEPA?
Well, anytime you want to expand, you have to propose the information to IEPA. It would require infrastructure improvements at that location. Currently, there is additional room there depending on what we're looking to do, but at some point we are landlocked.
I think the devil is in the details about what, how much, and when, but there's some opportunity, but we would have to be it'd be costly for sure and would take some effort engineering wise, so.
Yes. No slam dunk.
No. Other questions or comments from the board? Everyone fine with the plan as presented by staff? All right. Thank you so much. Anything else you need to hear from the board tonight? Okay. Thank you so much. May the bidding be in our favor. That concludes our new business topics. There is a second opportunity for public board comment. So does anyone from the public wish to address the board at this time? Let the record show none. Is there any other business for discussion only from the board tonight? The record show none. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes. Meetings